hello. I'm an ordinary woman living in New York City. I have one older sister. My mom gave birth to my sister and me, but my sister is honestly completely different from me. It has been like that ever since we were very young. While my older sister was outgoing and sociable, I was quiet and loved to read. My sister loved flirting, and she had a lot of boyfriends, but I only concentrated on studying. Even our parents would say, "I don't know how you two are sisters." But my parents used to take care of my older sister a lot more than me. The reason was that my older sister was better at studying than me. Some of you may have questions here. As I said before, I, who is more introverted than my older sister, studied more. But my sister was different from me. She was a very smart and tough person. There is a smart way to study. If I were the type to just study hard, she would get a higher score than me by only studying the core issues at the last minute. My mother was very proud of such an older sister. Both my mother and father were very passionate about education. Because of their family's financial situation, they couldn't all go to college. In particular, my mother was very good at her studies, and although she wanted to go to college, her father strongly objected to her, asking why a girl needed to go to college, so she couldn't go. My mother said it was the saddest part of her life. She tried to make us study as hard as we could, and always said we couldn't go to Harvard, but you should pretend that you are always at Harvard and study accordingly. That's the extent of mission in a word. It meant to live thinking that we are constantly in competition like the Harvard college students. Actually, my mother and father were excessively stressed about grades, but my older sister and I knew our parents' hardships. As I got older and in high school, I think I worked hard, at least in my studies. But I wasn't very good at studying. Maybe I wasn't just cut out for it. Oh, did our Jane only get these grades again? You always sit at your desk studying so much. But why are your grades like this? Jane, look at your sister. Your sister is number 1 in her class again. Please follow your sister. You just need to do what your sister tells you to do. I'm sorry. I was working hard too. Do you think you could achieve success just by working hard? If so, anyone could go to Harvard by working hard. On the day my report card came out, I was always criticized by my mother, and as a result, I lost interest in studying before I knew it. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't do it, while my older sister always used to do everything so well. At the same time, my family's attention and love were all focused on my sister. But Janice is in the first place again. You worked hard studying, my daughter. I'll buy you the clothes you wanted to wear this time. Really? Of course. Is there anything else my daughter wants? My mother, to my dismay, only bought my sister delicious food or clothes and openly favored her. I too was just a girl with a lot of things I wanted and dreamt of. She didn't even care. My mother only liked my sister, and later, I also started to have things I have to give up because of my sister. There was a time when the financial situation in our family went bad for a while, and we had to move to a smaller apartment rental from our large house. My mom chose a room for my sister without any discussion with me. But Janice needs a private room because she has to study, right? Use this as the room for you. Janich. You can't study when it's too hot, so I'll install an air conditioner only in your room. Mom, what about me? How do I sleep? Why do you need a room? You can sleep in the dressing room. As a dressing room? No. How could I sleep in that small space? Give me a room like Janice. Why can't you sleep there? I'll put in a mattress so you can sleep on it. Don't make a fuss. Since you are my younger, you have to yield to your older sister. Why are you acting so selfishly? Ante. I cried profusely out of sadness, and I had to use the small dressing room. Heights, Hakbianski area. I put in a small desk and studied with a feeling that I would not lose to my sister. I used to sleep on an old mattress right next to it. If I say this, some might say that my mother was being too much. Some might ask if I wasn't an adopted child. It wasn't like my mom just treating me like a mean stepmother. I was also her child, so there were times when she was good to me. However, when it came to studying, she gave me a different treatment from my sister, and it left a pretty big scar for me as a child. That's how my older sister and I went through difficult high school days and went to college. As expected, my sister went to Harvard University, while I barely managed to get into a university in New York. I did my sister so much, and knowing that I grew up with such discrimination because of her, she should have felt sorry for me, but she cursed at me. Hey, how are you going to get a good job after going to university like that? Why can't I get a good job? I can get it too. Why is our country so academically driven? You have to graduate from a good college in order to get into a great company. Then you'll get to meet a different class of men to become your husband. Your life is pretty pathetic. Don't ask me later to help you. I just hate that. He was my older sister, but she was cold. If it were me, I wouldn't say that to her only sister. I didn't get along with my mom, and my dad only liked my sister, so I was happier to leave home and live in the college dorm or away from home throughout college. I had friends and adults who did not treat me with prejudice. Perhaps because I was surrounded by such people. I felt relaxed, and even my personality changed to being a good-natured and positive person. Just once in a while I meet up with my high school friends, they would say, "You seem changed somewhat," and recognize the changes in me. Back then, while I was doing volunteer work at a nursing home, I got to meet my current husband. My husband stood out from the very first meeting with him. He was a sociable person with his peers, but more than that, he was especially calm and careful when he cared for the old people with Alzheimer's disease. Even the nurses would compliment him because he took care of them so well. He did a good job as if he had served an elderly person with dementia before. So I was curious and asked after we finished working, "Oh, I lived alone with my grandmother because my parents died early. My grandmother was ill for a long time, so I took care of her many times myself. Later, she was afflicted with Alzheimer's disease, and I took her to a nursing home. But until then, It was just me and the caregiver who came occasionally. It was only then did I understand. To be honest, when I first saw elderly people with dementia, I was both scared and bewildered when I first saw them acting like wayward children. But when I looked at my husband, who was calm somehow, I was a bit ashamed of myself and thought that I wanted to do well like him. To do well like my husband. And while my feelings of crush and curiosity about my husband were piling up, I confessed to him first. We became that famous campus couple all 4 years of college. Even now, when I think of that time, I feel nostalgic and miss it. It was when I was young and pretty. My husband and I skipped classes and went out, walking around while being surrounded by cherry blossoms, going to the game rooms, playing games, or going to karaoke. During exams, we studied together. I did everything together with my husband. My husband was everything in my youth, and I was the same to him. We broke up for a while when my husband went to the army and I graduated first and got a job early. Then I received a proposal after I got used to my work to some extent, and when my husband joined a fairly decent company. My husband had little but some money saved up from working part-time jobs throughout college, and I also had some money saved while working. Our start is small and lacking in many things, but Jane, I want to start a new life with you. I'd already dated my boyfriend for a long time, and I was also looking at 30. I hadn't saved all the money yet, but I wanted to start a new life like my husband said. Now, I didn't want to part with him after dating and desired to wake up together in the morning every day. If there was something I was a little worried about, it was my parents' opposition. But above all, it was because my parents had repeatedly told me that a person with a high education or a good job was the condition for marriage. I was worried even before taking my husband to meet my parents. Moreover, the fact also bothered me was that the groom my sister brought the following year was the son of a family of educators who, like my sister, worked for a large company. As I feared, our parents, even before they let my boyfriend into our family, were against him. No, I thought at least you were going to get married well, but have you been waiting all this time just to bring a man like him? Do you have any sense at all? Mom, please don't just blurt out like that. How could you say so rudely about your future son-in-law? What are you doing to embarrass people? Okay, I don't want to talk to you anymore, so take this guy with you. He's not a guy who has a good job, but how could you bring someone who is no different from an orphan? Do your mom and dad look like fools? But are your parents that easy? Why are you doing this? Really? Stop embarrassing me. Bye. I had to run out of their house with my husband that day, and I kept repeating to him that I was sorry. But my husband said he was afraid that I would renege on our marriage. He remained steadfast. I know. I fully understand that your mother and father would be against me. Honestly, my heart is broken too. But if I show them that we live happily and well, your parents will not be worried. I believe it. I choked on those words once more and sobbed. In the end, vacation seat, I was able to get permission to marry through a lot of fuss, telling them that if it weren't for this man, I would die. But did that mean that my mother treated my husband as her son-in-law? No. My mom and dad really continued to insist that they could not recognize my husband as their son-in-law. My husband was always treated as if he was a stranger. Even though he went early in the morning on holidays, helped my mom cook, carried groceries, bought health food for birthdays, and did things even a daughter couldn't do, my mother's reaction was the same. Well then, he came into our family with that low-level background, so he should do more to serve his mother-in-law. That's normal. Why should I be thanking him for that? Does he want to hear me say thank you? I'm sorry, but tell him I don't intend to say that to him. In addition, the thing I was heard about was when my husband was being compared to my sister's husband, my brother-in-law. When my brother-in-law and my husband entered the house together, my mother only greeted my brother-in-law and didn't even look at my husband. Did my brother-in-law help at home? My brother-in-law watched TV with my sister and ate the fruit we peeled, and that was all. The only ones working were my husband and me. Still, my mother only talked to my brother-in-law. I heard that you're about to be promoted this time. I even prayed for you. The fortune teller says it'll probably work out well. So don't worry too much. Oh, I brought this for you, so take it with you. She only paid attention to my brother-in-law. Mother, isn't this that famous health supplement? Oh, this is very expensive. That's expensive, but for you, nothing is that expensive, so don't forget to take it every day. As expected. Thank you, Mom. It's in her bag, even though my husband could hear. He pretended he didn't hear and silently washed the dishes. Later, I got all upset. Why do you wash the dishes at my house? Don't do it. After shouting, I stopped him from washing the dishes. Then I went to my mom. Make my brother-in-law wash the dishes too. How come he never says that he is going to wash the dishes once when he comes to your house? Why is it that only my husband does this? I complained and my mother retorted, why does your brother-in-law have to get his hands wet? I'm grateful enough that he came into my family as a son-in-law. Does he have to do such a menial job? But your husband can do that. He was so dumbfounded by her that I yelled at my mom. Mom, are you going to be like this? Then you're saying that my husband is a person who can do menial chores like washing dishes, and that my brother-in-law is a noble one who shouldn't do such a thing. What's so good about my brother-in-law? Why do you discriminate while ignoring my husband like this? Mom, can't you see my husband is trying to impress you? Is that something you don't even care about? But she only said she couldn't communicate with me either, and went into her bedroom. She was my mother, but she was cruel. When I watched my mother acting like this, the memories of her discriminating against me from my sister in the past came to my mind, and it made my heart ache more. It was something that only those who have been discriminated against can sympathize with. But for some reason, my husband also was hurt as I suffered in the past. So I was so sorry that it all came about because he came to my house. I felt he was getting hurt that he didn't deserve. But my husband always comforted me and said, "Honey, I don't feel hurt because of your mom and dad at all. They dislike me, but once in a while, your mom still asks me how I am doing from time to time and gives me even some vitamins. That whether they like me or not, if I continue to be by their side and do a good job, someday, my mother-in-law and father-in-law will accept me." Every time he said that, my heart ached even more. But as my husband said, I did hope that it would happen someday. Then, on my husband's birthday, an incident happened, and with that, I gave up hope. My mom called that day for some reason, saying that my husband should drop by her house if he wasn't busy. Why is your mom calling me? Exceptually, even though it was a holiday, my husband went to my mother's house humming a song as if he didn't mind complying with my mother's request. He seemed to be looking forward to what was going on. However, the moment I found out what was waiting, I became shocked. My mom had ordered a bunch of do-it-yourself furniture for their basement, and the boxes were opened, filling the yard. "Oh, you are here. I called to help me with this." Not only that, there were a bunch of flowers and small trees to be planted in the garden. "Mom, did you invite us to assemble all the furniture as well as planting those around your yard?" When I asked her, she nonchalantly nodded her head. "How could I do all that? You guys need to help me. There's some furniture I ordered for your sister and you too. So you need to assemble those quickly and deliver them to our house before you take yours. Mom, today is my husband's birthday. I'm sure it was popped up on your social media network. Does my husband have to work even on his birthday? What is so great about it? Couldn't he help his mother-in-law? Hey Peter, don't you want to help me? If you don't want to, you don't need to. I'll do it myself." "No, I'll help, honey. Don't be like that." "I'm okay, Mother, since I didn't know I would be assembling and planting in the yard. I'll go home and change my clothes and be back." "Okay, do that. We have a lot of things to do. We'll need to clear out the basement first before moving the new furniture inside." I was shocked at my mom's shameless piling on more work without batting an eye. But a week ago, I saw my sister's social media network a photo of her husband's birthday dinner with the title, "I'm my mom's gourmet buffet" she made for my husband's birthday party. On my brother-in-law's birthday, my mom made a huge gourmet buffet for his birthday party. Yet she was forcing my husband to hard labor on his birthday, and I became furious and shouted at my husband not to go, and I threw the flowers and trees into the recycling bin in the yard. "Never mind, honey. Don't do that." "Mom, are you that inconsiderate and disrespect my husband like that? Don't you think I know what you did for my brother-in-law last week for his birthday? You made a whole buffet of gourmet food. And now what? You have a lot of work, including cleaning out the basement for the new furniture that he has to assemble." And at that assemble the furniture for my brother-in-law's house. How dare you treat my husband like that? Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? You really have an odd personality. Your brother-in-law is in charge of a very important project at a great job, So I am feeding him gourmet food. But your husband is the laborer's type, so I'm asking him to do the job that fits him. I got it all figured out. I'm not just asking him to do anything, but work that suits him. What? Are you done with what you're saying? The person's level. So are you saying my husband is not at the level to eat gourmet food, so he needs to just come to your house and do menial jobs and hard labor? You're the same as when I was young. You raised me treating me with prejudice from my sister, and now do you even extend that to my husband? Are you an adult when you act so petty and unfair like that? You are such a bitch. If you are going to complain like that, get out of my house. I don't even want to ever see your face again. Peter, what are you doing? Take her and get out of here. Before I leave. I'll say one thing. Starting today, I'll sever our ties with you forever. I can no longer put up with your disrespect and meanness toward my husband. You'll make me go crazy with depression. How dare you talk back to your mother like that? Like you became so ignorant like your husband after you met someone low-level like that. This is why a person should meet with someone with a higher level, so that your life would improve. When I see you, I feel so frustrated. My husband didn't know what to do in the middle when we were fighting ferociously. He seemed to be greatly hurt by the incident, but he didn't show it to me. After that, my conflict with my mom deepened and we did not see each other. Betrayal, even though I knew I shouldn't act that way, it was only my husband who called my parents once in a while. I didn't want to be their child anymore. There were already too many past wounds that were piled up in my heart. My mom was even further dissatisfied with my husband when he quit his work and decided to start his own business. His plan to start his own business had been planned a long time ago. He was working at a cosmetic company while I worked at a marketing company, and my husband always said that he wanted to start a natural organic cosmetic company. I had told my mom a long time ago about it, because I thought she would complain if I told her too. If I told her too late, but she criticized my husband. He's nothing that he has learned. Yet, why does he say he would start his own business? How would he be able to control his employees? Why doesn't he just receive the money paid by his employer rather than doing something crazy like that? Mom, my brother-in-law, is also quitting his job and starting a business of his own. When you say nothing to him, why are you being like that to my husband? Is your brother-in-law the same as your husband? He graduated from the best university in the nation, and he even has a PhD from studying abroad. Your husband only graduated from some unknown college and worked at a tiny company. You should compare what could be compared. It's like comparing a convenience store to a major supermarket chain. An old junk car tries to race against a Mercedes-Benz and see who will win the race. Now you are even calling my husband an old junk car? It must make you feel very good to have an old junk car as your son-in-law. I only have one son-in-law. I only have a Mercedes-Benz for my son-in-law. Oh, right. Of course. Then take your Mercedes-Benz son-in-law and live together forever. From now on, you only have one daughter, too. My mom cursed at me, and I didn't know that my husband was listening, but I yelled at my mom and hung up the phone. There was something more shocking, in fact, about the phone. There was something more shocking fact about the conversation. Later, I found out that my mom even gave money to my brother-in-law for his new business. When I heard that from my sister, I felt so betrayed that my blood seemed to be shooting up my head. Did you know? Mom has that piece of land, right? It wasn't large, but it was valuable. She sold that and gave it to John to help with his new business. Anyway, how's your husband's new business? When my sister started to find fault with my husband again, I hurriedly hung up the phone. My sister was just as bad as my mom to look down on our situation. She was living in a luxury townhouse while we lived in an old condo, and she would sneer at me, asking if I didn't have mildew in the place and how I could raise any children in a small condo at a bad location and so forth, as if we were living as paupers. It was too much to put up with her, and it was a lot more comfortable to just ignore her. But in the end, I was able to give one big punch. Give one big punch as revenge to my mom and my sister. My mom invited us to come to dinner to celebrate our dad's birthday. I really didn't want to, but my kind-hearted husband dragged me, saying that I shouldn't act like that. John, try this. It's very delicious. My mom, as usual, only gave delicious food in front of my brother-in-law, and my husband just ignored it and was eating silently. But my father's face didn't look very happy that day. I quickly caught on, and later I entered my father's den and asked him separately, away from others. Dad, what's wrong? That's because... No, even though you're my daughter, a father can't say everything. My dad avoided my eyes and wouldn't tell me to the end. Then my husband and I went to buy some ice cream at a nearby market when I saw my dad with a strange man. But the atmosphere was odd. Actually, when I looked closely, that strange man was raising his voice at my dad and even pushing my dad with his fingers. So, when are you going to pay back? Aren't you going to give back my money? Until when? And are you going to defer this? You must pay up right away. We were holding our breath and watching them and hiding. We were worried that my dad would be harmed, so we went near them and asked what was going on. Those people said that my dad was in debt with them for over $500,000. I was shocked at the amount being so large and asked what happened. But then my dad gave in and confessed what happened. When we heard, we were flabbergasted. My dad just trusted my brother-in-law and invested in the company that was a friend of my brother-in-law. But the business failed, so he got into that much debt. Then, I asked, wouldn't my brother-in-law have some responsibility in that, and did he ask for his help? But my dad said weakly. Don asked why was that his responsibility. He told me to do whatever since he's not responsible. So how could I do anything? I felt too helpless, so I couldn't even say anything to your mom yet. Isn't it being too irresponsible? We can't let it pass like this. We should let everyone know and find a solution. I went straight home from there and told my mom and my sister in front of my brother-in-law. As expected, my mom was shocked, and she was on the verge of collapsing from shock. John, what is this? Is this true? Yes, I told you that this investment was done by your husband. Not right, Mom. It's Dad's fault. It's not John's fault. Dad, why did you do stupid things like that? You should have just remained still. What? Didn't you tell me that it was a sure investment? If I invest, I would get at least 200 or 300 return, right? And now, how could you change your words just like that? I don't intend to blame you. I was the one to make the decision. Still, for you to act with that kind of attitude, I don't think that's right. You are an educated person enough to know better. My dad showed some tears in his eyes, but as if he was tired of everything, he went into his bedroom. Only then, my mom felt so betrayed by my sister and her husband and told them to leave immediately, and said that she didn't need them, and threw the tea tray from the dining room table, breaking all of the teacups and teapot. When you said you had no food in your house, I cooked every week to fill your refrigerator, and I saved your household expenses by even babysitting your baby. John, when you said you needed money for your business, I gave you money after selling my land, and even went to your office to clean the damn place. But how could you now ignore this and pretend you have nothing to do with it? Are you guys human beings even? I don't want to see either of you. Get out now? I want to live by severing my ties with you. Mother, have you lost your mind? My mom seemed furious at my brother-in-law's words, and she threw the pitcher of orange juice in front of my brother-in-law and shouted at them. My brother-in-law and my sister were soaked with the orange juice and got kicked out of my parents' house. My husband watched my mom like that and quietly went to see my dad. He seemed to be giving his consolation to my dad. Shortly, my dad and my husband came out together. That night, it was late, so my husband and I came home. Honestly, actually, I hated my parents, but as their daughter, when I saw my dad's face in despair, I didn't feel good about it and couldn't sleep all night long. Wondered how my mom felt after being betrayed by my sister and her selfish husband. I was trying not to show it to my husband, but before I realized it, I kept sighing and my body felt very heavy. I kept thinking of my parents while I was working. Then one day, my husband suddenly asked me to go over to my parents' house to take them out to dinner. Take my mom and dad out. Where? There is a nice restaurant that your mom likes near their house. Let's go there and buy them something delicious. We should make sure they eat well, as they are not eating properly. It's amazing. If I were you, I could never treat my mom unfairly and meanly. Thank you, honey. I wondered if my husband was a fool for enduring mistreatment from my mom, but he was still trying to take care of her. I didn't take care of my parents, so I felt relieved that my husband was doing it on my behalf. I felt that he was a much bigger person than I was. Then we headed to my parents' house, but when we got there, as we suspected, they hadn't eaten anything, so they looked much thinner and appeared to be sick. Thank you for coming by. They welcomed us, and we couldn't see any traces of the sneering looks they used to give us. My dad looked even worse. When I saw them like that, one part of me felt depressed. Quickly, we offered to take them out to eat and headed toward the front door. Then, my husband stopped and handed an envelope to my parents in an awkward way. When they looked inside, both my mom and dad started to sob. I couldn't believe the situation and just stood there looking perplexed. My husband said as my parents were weeping, "Mother, it's $100,000 and the rest of the money will be paid by us, so don't worry. Right now my business is doing well, so I have some cash. I think it was destined to be spent this way, that my business is doing so well these days. I always thought of both of you as my parents. I already decided when I got married that I would live with you as your son. So don't feel burdened, and take it as if your son is giving you some spending money and accept it for me. Peter, how badly I acted towards you, but why do you? It's in the past, Mother. Even though I wasn't good enough in your eyes. I knew that, but I'll try very hard, and in the future, I want to be accepted by you. It will be a lie to say that I wasn't hurt at all. But now I am glad that I could be of help to you in times of need. In exchange, I hope you will like me too. I'm so sorry for all my bad behavior. I am a sinner. I am guilty. I didn't know you would be helping me. I only treated you so unfairly. You might not be able to forgive me at once, but I'll pay back your kindness for the rest of my life. And Jane, I'm sorry. I thank you and I'm sorry. Peter. My mom sobbed to the point she couldn't stand and held my husband's hand. My husband held her hand and told her everything will be all right. It was my first time to wipe away my mom's tears with my hand. And I knew then for sure that my husband was truly a big person who had a much greater heart and kindness than I could ever dream to have. Of course, my husband now receives my mom and dad's love fully. It wouldn't be exaggerating to say that he's the most loved son-in-law in this world. Like my mom used to cook for my sister's husband. Now she cooks my husband's favorite food and even goes far away to get anything that would be good for my husband's health. They do not contact my sister and her husband any longer. We also do not. Acceptance productions as acceptance in a while I feel the resentment toward my mom when I think about what she did in the past, but with time those resentments also are fading away. I have to thank my husband, who made it all possible to turn our lives around. Recently, we have a good piece of news also. Finally, we are having a baby too. I was very worried because I couldn't get pregnant, but now I am so relieved. I want to see my baby soon, and it makes my heart beat faster in anticipation. I'm so happy with my husband these days. Let's love our mate and be kind to each other. Thank you for being my side, darling. I wish good health to everyone and hope your path will always be a beautiful one. Please cheer for me and write your comments of wisdom in the comments section. Pressing like and subscription is a big help to me. Take care.